You don't need to watch the rest of this video if you can capture notes from this brief 1-minute overview. First example from a painful activity. I'd like you to capture the date, what you were intended to do, in this case a 7-mile run at a conversational pace, then what actually happened when you went to do it. At 4 miles, my symptoms moved from green to amber, and at 5 miles, I stopped. Little plan of action so that I'm moving forwards, regress my running volume, or speak with my coach. Okay? If we come into the training context, here, today's date, where's my program come from? Day 1, block 3, hypertrophy, barbell medicine, for example. What is the exercise that I'm looking to do? Bench press, tempo, reps, the intensity, the sets. Then what actually happened when I did the set? Warm-ups, barbell for 20, 60 for 10, 80 for 5 kilograms or pounds, that could be. After this point here, I'm into work sets. 100 kilograms for 8 at RPE 6.5. That's a slight overshoot from what was programmed. Then I moved on to 100 for 8 at 7, 105 for 8 at 8, 105 for 8 at 8.5. I overshot on a couple of those sets, made a little note to myself there for next week to adapt and try and bring it back in line with what's called for. Space left for the exercises ahead. If that's how you're doing things already, then stop the video here. If you'd like to learn more in depth about how to develop this skill, then continue watching the rest of this tutorial. Welcome to this tutorial with me to help you with something that I think is overlooked, underappreciated, yet absolutely essential for both rehabilitation and becoming a self-autonomous athlete or someone who trains, okay? I've got the nice guidelines up here behind me, which is the National Institute for Clinical Excellence for back pain is what I've got up here. And if I just scroll down, what I just want to show you is the self-management here, okay? It's top of the tree when it comes to the non-pharmacological or non-medicine interventions for back pain because it's so important, providing people with advice, information tailored to their needs and capabilities to help them self-manage. It's so important to be able to have a vehicle for assisting you, not just in the 30 minutes or the 60 minutes that you're with me in person, but for the other 23 hours of the day that you're away from me. So this is why I take the note-keeping skills in the early days of working with me as more important than anything else that I'm gonna see from you. No amount of weight that you're gonna lift, no distance that you're gonna run is gonna impress me more than you showing me that you have accountability to the simple process of tracking and capturing what you do, because this helps us together to be able to see where things like load spikes happen, where patterns of things that you may be not tolerating seem to be emerging, and it also enables us to see if it's training, if we're hitting plateaus or we're not getting the results that we want, that we can see what we've been doing to then make the appropriate changes. Now, there's no correct way to do note keeping, and I've been extremely interested in training with and under people from all around the world to see exactly how people do it. And every time I work with somebody, everyone has their own little quirks, everyone does things their different ways, but believe it or not, some people who are successful still don't have a method that they use to capture their notes. So the fact that you're on this video, the fact that you're watching, suggests that you are interested in learning to be able to self-manage and capture what you do. So here is some steps that guides what we capture in our notes. The top one, in a succinct way, is what's the programming, what is the thing that you are doing today. You write that in your journal. I'm going to show you how you do it afterwards. And then the second one is what actually happened, because those two are almost always going to be different, and that's key. So I'm going to show you how we leave space, whether you're doing this physically by hand or digitally, to allow for the fact that what is written and what happens is often very different, especially when it comes to pain. Okay, I will want you to capture to yourself things that went well. If you hit a personal record when you didn't expect it, if you are recovering, if things have settled down faster, a little smiley face. It's ingrained in humans to see the negative in things. So I'll be encouraging you to pull out the positives and capture your thoughts when those happen. Because we also want to capture when maybe things are sore, and we'll also want to jot down when it's maybe not going well. I'm not hitting the lift that I was hoping to hit today. Is there a reason that I can find to explain that? Or do I need to jot it down and chat with my healthcare professional about it? That would be what I would want to capture there. And then also a little thought about what you're going to do in the next session. If you can capture that, this is a process that should be done within the session. It's not something that you have to add to your already busy life. It's something you do in between sets. You're an engaged person within your rehabilitation or as an athlete to help you with the reasoning process of what you are going to be doing when you are doing activities or you're training. So here's an example of a client working with me, and I've written the programming on the board, okay? He is arriving at his session and he is jotting the session down, and from there, you can't see this here, I'm going to walk you through step by step, but he leaves space to capture what actually happens. It is important that you do this, in my opinion, when you get to the gym. Some people will say we'll have everything planned out. Our program should be planned out, but we should be able to navigate it in multiple ways. The approach I will be wanting you to take is one that facilitates the fact that life gets busy, that work is a stress, that kids are a stress, that you have maybe got lots of different stuff going on. So plan your session, either the day or when you get to the gym, 5 minutes, because from there, you are able to weigh up how you feel today, you're able to look at your programming, you're able to look at the environment that you're in and adapt the session. And that's a little example of me sat with one of my clients there, where we are pulling from his program and planning what he's going to do on that day, okay? I will want you to do the same thing. And this draws upon some really key literature around basic human psychological needs. The fact that you're involved with choice around what you're doing today, not just what I've said because I've written it down, not just because your coach has said that you're supposed to do this today. You being involved aligns with basic human psychological needs that is going to significantly increase the motivation and the selection of what you actually do. So the choice of your planning being when you get to the gym or an appropriate time on the day is an important one, not just for being pedantic, because I think you're going to find that it enables you to adapt the program as appropriate. And here is just a quick difference between what my client that I shared there before wrote prior to his session. The exercises are written, and then after the session, he's filled them in based on what actually happened. Because of course, I can't predict entirely what's going to happen. So that's a quick whistle-stop overview. Let's give a concrete step-by-step example of how I'd like you to go about this. Now, what I do with almost everybody when I first start with them is I ask them to get themselves a journal. Keep it in your kit bag, keep it in your van, wherever it is, so that it's just where it needs to be. You don't have to remember it, it's just with you. If you're an athlete, it goes with your belt, your straps, your chalk, your training journal. It's as important because you don't want to be wasting any time. You want to be able to access what you did in your last session. You want to see what you're looking to do today. So get a day to a page diary. That's probably the most easy way to go about this. I keep a rolling Word document, but I do the exact same thing. I'll show you a couple of examples of my notes afterwards, but I would encourage you to get a day per page journal, because then whatever day we're on is accounted for and it's easy for you to find it, and you just put in whatever you're doing on that day. Now, if, for example, you were doing a pain rehabilitation program with myself, then you might be encouraged to explore some tasks. For example, I've got one here. Can you think of a time when you had a bruise or a scratch, but you don't remember where it came from? This is an example of tissue damage, but no pain. I would want you to consider jotting down an example of that yourself. You know, running and finding scratches on your leg and you can't remember how you got them. A bruise, I get them all the time. And that's a clear example. And if it's one that you can think of, it's going to be much easier for you to get on board the fact that we can be sore but safe, we can hurt, but it's not equal to harm. This is an example that I would want you to jot down some clear ones for yourself in your journal. And I can't force you to do this, but I showed you the nice guidelines at the start, consistently across all the larger bodies of evidence and guideline-based practices of chronic conditions. Self-management's right up there. So this is going to help you get to the point where you can be doing the important things to move forward. So that would go into your notebook if you were doing tasks. So that's not sets, reps, training. That's the things that you are looking to help understand more about pain. It could also be activities at work, activities in your hobbies where you're jotting down patterns or things that you might have identified. Now, what I do want you to develop is how to capture working through a progressive plan, okay? Because programming is really important part of a progressive plan. And this would be an example of some programming that I might have working with you for returning your ability to hop, okay? So here is the programming. This is called the variable hop protocol. It's an evidence-based protocol to help someone rebuild their elastic properties in their Achilles or their knee. And this is a starter programming protocol that you might have in your program. So here is a step-by-step approach to what I would like you to do going in to hit your session. You're going to get today's date. But of course, you don't need to do that if you've got a day to a page diary. If you don't have a day to a page diary, please get the date, because dates are so useful for you and me to help you work things out. But what am I going to do in the gym today? I've just got to my space and I'm planning on working on some of the hops that my coach has given me. Where's my program? Okay, I'm going to find it on my phone. It's in an email. Oh, I happen to have it up here. What is the plan? Okay, warm up 60 times 3, double leg, stiff knee. Now, I encourage you to write the programming out, because when it comes to looking at your diary, if you are just putting what you actually did and you don't put what was planned, it's going to be quite hard to work out what you were trying to do versus what happened. So as a habit, I would ask you to consider writing out the programming and do it accurately, because I might write in there reps, sets, tempo, I might write some specific notes. Here, that's the programming. You've got the exercise and that's the warm-up. Then I would encourage you to leave a little bit of space. Okay, so I'm going to come down here. What's next? A1, 30 times 3. That's a single leg, stiff knee. Now I've just written 3 of them out there. You could write all of them and then whatever else you might have planned in the session. But I've left some space, because the reason that you're doing this is potentially because you've got a sore knee or a sore Achilles. So here you are allowing to write down what actually happened. So now what I would want you to do is ensure that you understand what the exercise is. You go and do it. So say that you do 60 double leg stiff knee bounces, almost like a pogo. You do the set, 60, bang, fantastic. Write it in there. That's a load that's just gone through your body. And what I would encourage, if you're from a rehab perspective, I will have given you a traffic light analogy or a similar version using acceptable or unacceptable pain to help guide with this decision around, do I need to push on or can I back off? That is what the traffic light analogy there is, and I would just pop something like that. Did I accept that? Did I tolerate that? Green. Super. Maybe it was a bit sore, not quite sure if that's tolerable or not. Maybe it was green to amber. I'm going to do the next set. Okay, so next set is another set of 60. So I do the set, I write it into my journal. 60, done it. Okay, I ask myself again, and this time, oh, it felt a little bit better, definitely a bit easier. I'm going to call it green. Okay, so in this instance, the symptoms are clearly getting easier as we're getting going, and we can capture that and we can see that, because of course the total opposite could happen as well, that the more you do it, the more your symptoms ramp up, and we want to be able to see that. And what I would encourage you to do then is work through the session and say, for example, we get that one done, 60, and it's green. Then we get to this one here, 30 times 3 single leg stiff knee. Okay, 30 reps, and this time symptoms become unacceptable. Okay, from here, amber or red or straight unacceptable to you. In this instance, you will want to maybe make a little note around, or can you explain why that is? Maybe put a circle around it, speak to a healthcare professional, show that to them, or whatever it may be. But this would be as an example to get you through the planning of the session and then capturing what actually happens. If you do this, you will develop the skills to help you, allow your healthcare professional help me, help you problem solve your way through the program. And say that that is the end of the session. I might, if the session went really well, I hit all of the things that my coach or that was in the plan programmed, smiley face, session went to plan, see what is next with regards to progression or alternatives, speak with Luke or look up online what's going on there. So to bring this practical example back to the guide that I'm setting you up with, structuring the thinking around your notes. The first one, what were you aiming to achieve? Well, if you've written the programming out like we've done here, we know exactly what we were going in to achieve. Then what actually happened? In this instance, we hit the sets that we were trying to until we got down to this part here where symptoms, we said, became unacceptable. We've written the load, we've written what actually happened, and then from there we were able to capture a few ideas around what we might do to either reach out to a coach or research some information to help us to improve things, and a little bit of a plan around what we might do next session. So I've just given you a really quick walkthrough of the thinking process that, when you get used to it, is seamless. If you were to join me in a session, this all happens between sets. This doesn't add anything to the duration of the session. And it's done and it's ready for me to pick up so that when I do my session today, I can look back at yesterday's notes. I can look back at this session last week. I can look back 6 months ago. And it's a skill that is incredibly worthwhile and sets you up for success, as I said, with both self-management and training autonomy. Let me give you an example of me applying this on my knee right now. You can see that from my notes, which are not by memory, from reading my notes here, I had an innocuous onset of medial and lateral joint line pain and catching between sets whilst low bar squatting. So here was the notes that I had for that session. Now I was doing a low bar squat, which you may or may not be familiar with, and the programming I've got written there was 4 reps at RPE 6. I've covered that in another video, but what that means is that the weight should be such that I have about 4 reps from where I think failure is. Then I have 4 reps at RPE 7, then I have 4 reps at RPE 8. So underneath that, you can see that I wrote 60 kilograms for 10, 100 kilograms for 6, 120 kilograms for 4, 140 for 3. These are all warm-up sets. I jot them down because they are in preparation for when the first work set is coming. Here we're now on 170 for 2, so that's becoming quite a high relative weight for me. And then when I get to 180 for 4, I have written at 5. That means that I feel that at that point there, I had about 5 reps left at the end of my set. And you'll see the little note that I had there, the most in over 6 months. So we talked before about capturing when good things happen, not just the bad things. So that's a little note to myself there that I was actually really happy with the load that was on the bar, because something that isn't in here is that I was actually being held back by subacromial pain of over 6 months up until that point. So that was a really nice moment to be able to lift that weight. Now, from there, I went up to 185 kilograms for 4 reps, and I rated that as an RPE 7. So now that's getting to a hard work set. I feel like I've only got 3 left, but the note afterwards, a little twinge, medial left knee right before the set, which offset my confidence a little bit. So you can hear me sort of thinking to myself at that point. Okay, I'll read my notes and you can follow along with me. Medial joint line hurts when taken into flexion and also projects some pain to my lateral knee. It feels like a little meniscus tweak. It didn't happen during the set. Felt it stepping between sets. Now, I'm a healthcare professional and I'm almost reasoning to myself the whole time, trying to make sense of what's going on. If you're doing a good job in just capturing what's happening, when you're training. What you're actually doing for your healthcare professional is providing a really good history that will help them to do this reasoning for you. Okay, going on, totally innocuous onset. Squatting is not new for me, as I've been really consistent with this for the past 12 weeks and with heavy lifting for the past 2 years. I've been doing a bit more high intensity interval training these past months, including running, but not enough that I think I would overdo it. Okay, moving on, a week later. Things have been fairly consistent. Locking is more sensitive to extension of my knee than flexing it. However, flexion is limited for swelling in the knee. I'm preparing at this point for a competition. I've got symptoms that is not just pain, I've got swelling. It's not just about saying that we've got to stop and back off all the time. That I was weighing up that I had to get to the competition. But the reason that I came to here was because I was able to capture my notes that I feel that it's actually osteoarthritic in nature rather than being necessarily as a result of any of those particular movements that I was doing. So I pushed on. And then almost 6 weeks on from the onset, I've nearly completed my training cycle for the CrossFit competition. I have got significant swelling on the medial side of my knee, and it does limit full knee flexion. I've been doing all training using my traffic light scale for tolerance, using the catching and feeling and swelling as my gauge. The catching has got less for sure. Occasionally on the rower it's caught me, and while walking. I've continued lifting heavy and running, and the only thing I've still not done is heavy high intensity power cleans, as I have some fear, like everybody else does, on movements that have been painful. I have an opportunity to take a mini off season after this next 2 weeks where I can allow things to settle down and then slowly build back up. But if they don't, continue the problem solving and onwards we go. And this is an example of you following along with me, thinking and reasoning between sets. And if you were to see me working with my clients, what I do in the early days is I write the sets and the reps. I'll start, if we're going back to the top here, I'll write the exercise for them in their journal. I'll write their warm-up sets and then the reps afterwards, and then teach them to write that it's green or amber or the RPE, and then the little note to themselves that might help them next week. That's something that I start people off with, something that then hopefully they can either copy or they can adapt it to what works and is the most effective for them.
2 or 3 left? Yeah. 13 reps. Beautiful. So that's 10 kilograms. For 13 reps at 7.5. You see the gain? Constant gain? Yeah.
Now, hopefully that is a good overview of how things are going to work. Maybe it's new and you're thinking, oh, Christ, still don't know how or where to start. Here is a step-by-step follow along of me doing this with one of my clients, Jackie, from planning to doing the session to her note keeping to picking what goes on the bar. Check it out and see if you can engage with implementing note keeping in your training or rehabilitation. Okay, so I'm here with one of my clients, Jackie. I've been working with Jackie for quite a long time now, and for both training and rehabilitation. Jackie can tell me otherwise if you disagree, but one of the biggest skills that we did early doors and consistently across everybody I work with is develop her ability to track what she does. Neither passing judgment, good or bad, but being able to capture what she does. Now, Jackie's here today and she is about to go in and hit a session. The specifics of her session are not relevant for teaching the skills of note-taking and developing self-efficacy, which I can speak with confidence that having worked with Jackie for shoulder pain, knee pain and various bits and pieces over the years, she is an extremely effective self-manager. She's actually going to train away from me now, but I've caught Jackie as she's coming in and we're going to just see exactly how she uses her notebook and her program to plan her sessions, which is a skill that I will want anybody watching this to develop. So your program is on here. And what Jackie's done here, I'll show you her notes afterwards, is write today's date. We can have a program online and we have to have the variability that it may be on a Monday, it may be on a Thursday. We need to have the scope for doing the days when they suit Jackie's life. Okay, so she's popped the date here. Next thing, what are you doing, Jackie?
I'm doing block 2, day 3, week 3.
So she has access to her program on an Excel spreadsheet. You could have it somewhere else online. And she has a hard notebook. And I really emphasize for her to write where she's getting her programming from. So block 2, day 3, that gives her and me reference point to see where she's getting the information from. Cool. What next, Jack?
Then taking each section of the programme. I write down the plan of what's actually planned for that particular set, leaving some space between each set so that when I actually do the work, I can write in exactly what I've done.
And that's a super important point, because whilst I can program and other coaches and clinicians can program things, what actually happens compared to what's programmed is almost always different. So we need to be able to cater for that, and that's exactly what Jackie's doing. So watch how we do this now and how I would like you to do it. Jackie, which day are you on here now?
I'm on day 3 of my session.
Day 3 and exercise 1.
Exercise 1 will be hip thrusts, so I'm going to write hip thrust. Okay, that's my hip thrust. Now my plan is week 3, so my plan is 7 reps at 7 for 4 sets. So I'll write that down.
So what Jackie's done there is I ask her to write the exercise, write the programming, everything that is in the plan written out by hand so that she doesn't have to keep looking at the plan. It's a habit that I would like you to get into, and then she's going to leave space for her warm-up sets and then her work sets to actually hit whatever's written there. She's written hip thrust, it could be a 4-mile walk, it could be swimming, whatever it may be. That is what Jackie's going to now do for each exercise, giving her space to be able to fill it in once she goes and does the work. Cool, so if you just write those out, Jack.
Yep.
Super, so that is a skill set, that is a habit that I would like to encourage. The first 5 minutes of your session is to get to wherever you're going to train, get your notebook or your phone or your computer or iPad out, look at your program, whatever it is, whether it's one of ours or somebody else's, plan what you're going to do today, because Jackie could have been sore, so what was written or planned in day 3, she may want to do something else. Get used to planning when you get to the gym. The next thing is Jackie's going to go and train, and to actually capture the notes using the traffic light analogy and tracking her rating of perceived exertion. That's the next skill set. Okay, so Jackie's just done a bit of a general warm-up that she wanted to feel limber to get going, and we're about to hit her first exercise, which you might remember was a hip thrust. Now, before the station is even set up, some of you watching this will wonder when reading RPE-based programming, well, Luke, what weight do I do on my first work set? Because it's very rare that I'll give you a weight to do, because I want to account for the fact that you could have slept well last night, you could have slept terrible, you could have high work demands on outside training, you could be really sore. That's what RPE enables us to do. So where the importance of note-taking comes in is because we still want to see the general trend of progressive overload. So you might remember that Jackie wrote down the week, the block, the day that her session is, and that's really important because we're on week 3 today, Jackie, aren't we?
Yes.
And when it comes to saying, right, Luke, what weight's going to be on for her first work set, we can look back at week 2 of this exact session, which she did last week. Jackie, can you find that for me quickly? Because she will be able to do that, and that will give her a really clear ballpark as to where her first work set should be. From that point, she will rate it based on how hard it feels, and the reasoning process has begun to help tell you what decision to do with regards to weight on the bar.
Yep.
What weight did we have last week?
Last week we finished up on 95 kilos at RPE 8.
So last week she did 8 reps, 95 kilos at RPE 8. So that gives her a really clear ballpark of roughly where she's going to be today. And now she's going to do her warm-ups and then start rating the sets. Jackie has just done her first warm-up set, so I get her to write down the weight on the bar. 7 reps, 60 kilograms, and she moves up. Okay, so with regards to warm-up sets, how many reps do I do in a warm-up? At what point do I start getting the reps the same as my work sets? Jackie, we just looked is going to be around 95 kilograms based on her numbers from last week to do 7 reps, and she's trying to hit that with 3 reps in reserve. So she's just done 60 kilograms for 7 reps. What are you going to put on the bar now? She's going to go up to 80 kilograms, which is probably the last warm-up set, I would say, before she then has a go at 95 kilograms, which might or might not be her first work set. She will rate it when she gets there and see if it does feel like that's where she has 3 in the tank today. So that was 80 kilograms. How many reps?
5 reps
5 reps.
in the tank.
How's it feeling?
Okay,
So she's written that in. Second warm-up set. No RPE written, which tells me that we are not calling that a work set. And I guess next set you're going to go for 95?
no, for 95, yep.
Super. Okay, so now we've got to 95 on the barbell where we think it may or may not be our first work set. Jackie's going to hit the set as called for, and then I'm going to ask her at the end of the set how many more reps she thinks that she could have done, and it's at this point here that she references her programming, because how many reps in reserve she should have on each set tells her what to do with the weight each set from here on in. Jackie's doing a 3-second negative up explosive. That's the tempo that you can see her hitting here, and she's hitting that nice and accurately. The RPE or reps in reserve is based on her ability to do these reps to failure. 7 reps.
7 reps.
How many more do you feel you could have done if I let you go there?
I think 3.
So Jackie feels that she could have done 3 more there. Her programming was to have 3 reps in reserve, which she'll now capture in her notes.
This is no work. So this was 7 reps.
7 reps on 95 kilograms, and she's going to put at 7, which means she feels she had 3 left. Now, what's your next work set called for, Jackie?
It's,
She looks back at her programming.
I've got to do another 3 at 7.
So she has 3 more sets of 7 reps at RPE 7. So that weight, 95 kilograms, was at 7. So what's your options now with the weight on the bar, Jack? If you couldn't hear Jackie there, what she was saying, she's going to keep the weight the same and then rate her second set. Because if her first set, she felt that she would have had 4 or more reps left, then she would increase the weight to try and get it to RPE 7. Okay, so this reasoning process now is going to guide her to make decisions on what she does with the bar all the way through to complete her work sets at the intensity called for. That's a skill. Set number 2, 7 at 7 is called for, 95 on the bar. But 7 reps, and Jackie again is constantly playing this game. How many more could I have done to really go to failure there? If I was to push you now to failure, looks to me like you could have got more than 3 there.
I think we could have managed 4.
So there, Jackie feels like she could have managed 4, and only she knows truly that, and it's a skill to develop that, and it's exercise specific, but that's not uncommon, okay? First set, she felt like she had 3 left. This one, she felt like she had 4 left. I would call that a learning effect or a warming up effect. Let's capture it in our notes.
Okay.
So Jackie has just found that she had 4 reps in reserve there. So now her choice on the barbell is what, Jack? But to get her to within 3 reps of failure on her next set, she's going to increase the weight on the bar. So Jackie's added 2.5, bringing us up to 97.5. Okay, here's set number 3 of 7 reps at RPE 7. Let's see how it goes. That looked like a tough rep, that last one there.
Yep.
Super. How many more?
I think 3.
RPE 7. So Jackie has her 4th set left, and again she looks at her notes. She wants to do 7 reps at RPE 7. Her last set was at 97.5. She rated that like she had 3 reps left. So on her 4th set, you're going to what?
I'm going to stay with that weight.
She's going to stay with that weight. So the RPE system has helped her develop the reasoning process to what weight goes on the bar each set. And it's not about being perfect, it's about being consistent. And over time, what will happen is you will get accurate at knowing when you have 3 reps left versus when you have 1 rep left versus when you have 3 or 4 reps left. Okay, set number 4. We've been having 3 or 4 minutes rest in between. This is Jackie's last programmed work set for today. 4 sets, 97.5 on the bar. Let's have a look at how it goes. Seven reps.
7 reps.
How hard did that one feel?
Not as hard as the 3rd one.
So how many more of them do you think you could have done?
Might have been able to squeeze out 4 actually.
So 3 or 4?
3 or 4.
Super. RPE 6.5. It's perfectly fine to undershoot. Don't beat yourself up, still an effective rep. Let's just get it in our diary. Super. So from leaving space, Jackie had her program written out here. This was warm-up sets, and at some point it turns into a work set, and that's where I encourage you to then rate how hard it feels. So then we can see 1 work set, 2 work sets, 3, 4. She's also made some small little notes, doesn't take a moment to do it. G, green, traffic light analogy, that's reference to Jackie's knee, which has been a little bit niggly for her. And that suggests that she tolerated that exercise, no problem. Any notes or anything for yourself next week, Jackie, when you hit week 4? I would encourage her to pop anything there for herself. There may be nothing, or it may be something that she would want to run by me, but also that's what I would like you to keep space for, because had you niggled your knee or something there, good to capture it and then be able to work out what you are and aren't tolerating. So Jackie is now going to run the exact same process there, looking at her notes from last week, looking at what's called for today, rating each set as it goes based on how hard it is or whether her symptoms are unacceptable. And that's what I would like you to develop the skill set with whatever exercises and notes you are taking.